Angela Vullo.
Appearing.
Angela Vullo. I'm here from the Washington, D.C. area. I serve on the steering committee of Our Revolution Northern Virginia, which is the Bernie Sanders group founded after his presidential run. We serve 4 congressional districts. I come here before you today to support the idea of federal aid to cities and states to build urgently needed infrastructure by the creation of a national infrastructure bank. The nation is in desperate need of a new mission, which would include high-paying jobs, rebuilding our dilapidated infrastructure, construction of new 21st century projects, and a restoration of hope for much of our country. Since the murder of John Kennedy, his brother Bobby, and Martin Luther King, the nation has gone downhill for over 50 years. The result has been not only a shutdown of our once envied industrial capability, but also an increasing social collapse. The rise in income inequality has led to a complete split in the population between the haves and the have-nots. There has been a dramatic increase in suicides, drug abuse, overdose deaths. Annual deaths from drug abuse are now greater than the total deaths during the Vietnam War. In addition, we now have regular rage-driven mass shootings, so regular that we have become numb to the impact. For the first time in U.S. history, life expectancy has declined for 3 successive years. We are in a dying culture gripped by fear, despair, and hopelessness. We are in need of a new mission like that of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal or the John Kennedy moonshot. We need to inspire a new generation of trailblazers to make the new discoveries in the arts and sciences, which can be translated into increasing in the standard of living and inspiration of culture. This must start with a massive commitment to first rebuild and then add on to our infrastructure and industry. According to sources that vary from the American Society of Civil Engineers to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the nation faces a shortfall of $4 trillion in infrastructure spending just to get back to a tolerable level of capability. To introduce new 21st century high-speed rail, power, water systems will demand over $1 trillion more. Much of the new spending will have to come from the Congress, but with a budget deficit of over $1 trillion per year, additional monies will have to come from outside of the system. That is why I am supporting the creation of a new national infrastructure bank with $4 trillion in capital to start to help drive this process. Each previous such bank, going all the way back to the Founding Fathers, contributed mightily to the building of our nation's productive capabilities. We have to shed the despair of today and replace it with a hope for tomorrow. Let us start, as Franklin Delano Roosevelt did, with something simple yet profound, and rebuild our infrastructure and industry and make the nation once again the envy of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Clerk.
Stuart Rosenblatt.
Hi, Stuart Rosenblatt, also Leesburg, Virginia. I am the husband. And here on orders, no, just kidding. I'd like to thank the council for giving us the opportunity to speak here. I am also a very active Democrat, heavily involved in coalitions nationally on this question, this burning question of building the infrastructure of the country. And I'm here to actually call upon the council to help us get this draft bill, which you have in front of you, introduced into the Congress to create a $4 trillion infrastructure bank on the model that's already been successfully done. I want to read you just 2 paragraphs from an editorial by the editorial board of the Newark Star-Ledger from a couple of months ago. And it simply says, "We are running out of warnings. Build the Gateway Project now." Most rail experts believe that when a giant metal beam smashes through the roof of a commuter train traveling through a decrepit 108-year-old tunnel that needs daily repair, it reflects an exigent need to build a new tunnel. That frightful incident took place aboard a New Jersey transit train barreling through the Hudson River Tunnel last Friday, and it cannot be dismissed as an anomaly or a bolt out of the blue. Here we are. We are using a tunnel built when your great-grandparents were your age. We need a tunnel that will serve your great-grandchildren, like the kids that were up here earlier this evening. We need a tunnel that will serve them and bolster the national economy. We have skipped 3 generations of infrastructure improvement, and it costs more the longer we wait. And now beams are crashing through the ceiling. Take the hint. So it is time for action. And what we're calling for is a $4 trillion bank capitalized with no new federal debt, simply monetizing existing treasuries and offering the holders of the treasuries 2% more interest than they're getting on their treasuries, all federally guaranteed. And that has been done numbers of times and was started by a guy named Alexander Hamilton when he wasn't too busy acting on Broadway, writing plays, and running the American Revolution. So we can elaborate this further at another meeting, but I just want to make that point now. We don't just want to build the gateway, although we have to build that. We want to rebuild the schools. I mean, we were just met with a leader of the County Democratic Party who described a high school where 3 staircases just collapsed, and kids are going to spend their senior year in trailers. Luckily, nobody was killed, frankly. And this is happening in schools all over the country and probably right here. The same is true in terms of water. We need to rebuild the water system of every major city in the country. There is no city that is not Flint. I mean, I come from D.C. Our water mains break regularly. Every week, every other week, they're 100 years old. They're made of wood. I mean, who's kidding who? So we've got to rebuild our power, water, rail, the works. We need a Franklin Roosevelt New Deal. This is the way to do it. It will create 20 million new jobs, high-paying union jobs. It will create apprentice programs for all the young people. It will inspire hope. And this is the way to attack the gang problem and the other violence that's infecting all of our cities. What we're asking for is a resolution. We've appended some to the handouts, and we're urging people to contact Congressman Payne, Senator Booker, and Senator Menendez. And we have met with their offices even very recently. Finally, you should know that the Democratic municipal officials, of which you are all members, have endorsed this at the summer meeting. And they then brought it to the Democratic National Committee, which itself endorsed it, and it has been endorsed by organizations all over the country. As Franklin Roosevelt said, we need action now. So I'd like to thank you. We'll be available later and can come back for other presentations.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Stanley Forchek.
Appearing.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm here with Angela and Stuart regarding the Federal Bank for
Sir,
Infrastructure.
please state your name on the record.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk.
Name and address.
Oh, my name is Stan Forzik. I'm actually from Williamstown, New Jersey, which is just outside the Philadelphia area. But I grew up in Belleville. I went to high school in Newark. My first job was in Newark many years ago, and I appreciate the opportunity to come up here. But I want to follow through on some of the points that Stuart had brought up. He read an article to you from the Star Ledger regarding a potential accident within the tunnels that a New Jersey Transit commuter train experienced. Years ago, the funding to fix those tunnels or to fix that railroad car was done by me. I spent 30 years with Amtrak in 2 different stints. I started as Director of Finance, finished as the Principal Officer of Energy Management. What Stuart and Angela are talking about is a bank to fix the infrastructure in the United States. You may not realize this, but if you walk down the street, ride in your car, take a train, it is all on infrastructure. He mentions, as Stuart mentions, a school. I'll mention a few other things. What about the accident in Minnesota where a bridge fell apart with cars on it and individuals were killed? The maintenance on that bridge and highway was not up to date. What about in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where a water main ruptured and water flooded the streets? What you have to realize is in this country, we are very lucky. All of the infrastructure was built many years ago, long before we were born. Railroads were built in the 1850s. They're still running on the same roadbed. Highways were put together on an interstate highway system in the 1950s. That's almost 70 years ago. The water systems are over 100 years old. The tunnels that Stuart mentions are over almost 110 years old. It's a good thing we had good engineers. Otherwise, we'd be having this conversation many years prior to this. I think it's time that we start thinking about the infrastructure. The proposals that they're making or have made before Congress, I was down in Washington with them last week, and we discussed that with many people. And they have resolutions before both sides of Congress. But there's a lot of partisanship down there where people don't want to get it approved. We believe that we have the answer in coming across with a U.S. bank. There have been 4 banks. Each one of them ended their charter in the black. I urge you to consider some of the things that they have given you here today. Read them, become associated with them, talk to individuals on the state level, on the municipality level, develop coalitions, create strategic partnerships so these things can be handled and we can move on. The longer we wait, the more we're going to have to fix. Stuart mentions $4 trillion. That is just to put the country in a state of good repair. It's not to bring it into the 21st century. You want to get to the 21st century, you want to get to the 22nd century for all of our children and our grandchildren, then it's going to take a lot more. But this plan, this bank, will do it, and I urge you to consider it. We need a champion to get things done. Angela mentioned the fact that at the only time in this country that someone set a goal and actually attained something was President Kennedy when he set the goal of going to the moon. And look at everything, all of the technology that came out of that. We have to set a goal. If you don't set a goal, you have nothing to shoot for. So let's think about shooting for a goal to create better infrastructure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.